Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, it's an honor to have this opportunity to kind of present in front of such a distinguished audience. Okay, as Simran mentioned.
Sorry, we have to just change the presentation.
Okay.
We can do that. Sorry about that.
No problem. So in the meantime, so my name is Shreyank Kamath. I'm part of the Metrics team product management team. I've been with Metrics team for over 10 years now, and been responsible for managing multiple products, especially in the risk and regulatory compliance space. I currently manage the business GRC product line here at Metrics team. Okay, and again, it's a pleasure to introduce my co-speaker, Neil Curry. Right, Neil is the head of product for integration and reg data at Cube, and prior to Cube, Neil has worked with one of the leading risk consultancies as the head of data for one of the tier 1 banks, right, where you were responsible for the solution architecture and also for the integration of Cube with their governance, risk, and control systems. And Neil has over 15 years of extensive knowledge or experience in product integration. Okay, and today's session, is it loaded? Yes. Right. Okay, so today's session is going to focus more on understanding the emerging trends in the regulatory compliance management space, and also how Metrics team and Cube have come together to address some of the challenges that our customers were facing in terms of managing regulatory change, and how it's not just about managing regulatory change or helping your organization from any future losses, but it's also about how we can give you a competitive edge over others. Okay, so with this, I'll actually hand over the floor to Neil to start with, and then we will get into the actual product implementations. Neil,
great.
Over to you.
Thanks, Shreyank. So yeah, a little bit of background. I jumped the fence. So I spent the last 2 years actually doing the solution architecture and integration of Cube into a tier 1 financial services institution. And at the beginning of this year, I left the financial services institution and came to work for Cube to start to put together their integration strategy. So a little bit of background just to start with. So the Cube currently monitors 102 regulators for the UK. And since 9 o'clock this morning to now, those 102 regulators published 73 regulatory events. And so part of why we think this integration is important is it's delivering those regulatory events to the desktop of the Metrics stream users. So but if you had to sit and search those 102 regulators, let's just say you spend an average of 3 minutes there, then we're looking at 360 minutes. We're looking at 6 hours to go find those same 73 regulatory events that the Cube relationship with Metrics stream delivered through to your desktop. Okay? So a little bit of background about Cube. Whoops, that doesn't work. Let's try that button, this button instead. Yeah, okay, cool. So Cube captures regulatory content across 180 jurisdictions in 60 languages and 4,500 plus regulators. We capture that content, we classify it, we enrich it, we provide related content links for that, and deliver it as curated content through to the Metrics stream environment. And that's the basis of our relationship and part of what we do. So, and all of that is designed to allow you to triage those 73 regulatory events that occurred this morning more efficiently. So let's just have a little bit of a look at a bit of history. So if we go back to sort of 2015, GRC systems or GRC compliance was typically manual. It was handled in Office applications. You'd put some into Word, some into Excel. And as we progressed through, we started to have the emergence of GRC providers and GRC applications like Metrics stream, which started to bring in automation and started to allow us to start to introduce monitoring. As we get through to today and moving forward, and the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning, the point of that is to introduce efficiency and introduce the ability to respond to regulatory events more rapidly, more effectively, and with less effort. regulatory information is diverse. So for many of our clients today, they will be monitoring 15, 20,000 regulations across a whole range of jurisdictions. Against each of those regulations, there are regulatory updates coming through. So each regulator publishes those updates in their own format, which is frequently different. And so part of what Cube does in delivering that through is it standardizes it, which allows us to feed that through to MetricStream in a standard format that is then presented to MetricStream users. It's not technology enabled. They publish it to the websites. They publish it via email. They publish it, in some cases, in some jurisdictions, like the Democratic Republic of Congo, by post. And Cube captures that content as it's delivered through its different channels and brings it into a standardized delivery mechanism back to our customers and back to MetricStream's users. The other thing that we have to recognize today is that regulators are not pushing technology. It's not on their agenda. Their agenda is regulatory. And so that's some of what we're going to start to see change, I think, as we move into the future. As regulators start to recognise that technology is a method to deliver out to their ultimate audience. So if we look at it today, 10 to 15% of financial institution staff work on governance, risk management and compliance. Rough span based on KPMG's Embracing the Challenge, and this is 2018, so it's probably increased by now, 270 billion spent on compliance. In the same period since 2008, over 300 billion in fines from regulators for not reaching that compliance objective, not managing that compliance. So where are we going? I think what we see is we're going to see a market consolidation. We're going to see a consolidation of providers of regulatory content because A, certainly by volume and certainly by difficulty because of all the different formats and all the different things that we're trying to scan and bring in and adopt, it requires the kind of technology that today is more advanced. It requires AI and it requires machine learning. But, what do you do when you get a PDF? Well, the first thing you have to do is deconstruct it and turn it into a machine-readable document to be able to bring it into a technology system to then present back. So that requires technology adoption. We're going to see an increase in robotic process automation. We're going to see the drive to increase and drive efficiency through that process of bringing content to the desktop of the people that actually have to make the decisions about what are the controls, what are the policies, how do we map this to our existing organisation. We're going to see an increased requirement for that delivery of regulatory information into the GRC environment, which is where those processes are taking place. And we're going to see increased adoption of AI capability. MetricStream already has AI capability built into it. Combining that with the AI capability that Cube brings to that in terms of classifying, managing, and delivering content and enriching content, that becomes increasingly important in getting it through to organisations so that they hit their SLAs. We do have in Mexico, for example, one of the things that happens in Mexico is immediately the regulation is published, you have to comply with it. So waiting 2 weeks to get that regulation is a problem. You actually need it as soon as you can get your hands on it because you've got a compliance requirement the day it's published. And there are 2 or 3 geographies where that is actually not unusual. Compliance offers an opportunity. We can see that today, based on Thomson Reuters Cost of Compliance Survey in 2021, there's a 50% expected personal liability to rise. So reputational risk is becoming a much more significant factor. So having that information there to actually help manage that is actually a risk reduction process as well. We can expect that 36% of budgets are going to remain the same. Pretty much globally right now, we are entering a recession. A recession is going to drive all sorts of cost-cutting initiatives across not just government, but actually it's going to impact individual enterprise, corporate enterprise. And government's going to be looking to recover some of that cost from corporate enterprise. We're already looking in the UK where we're talking about an increase in company tax rates. So that's going to put pressure on budgets for organisations. 47% expect the cost of senior compliance staff to rise. Well, we've got 10.1% inflation in the UK, though I did see a number of 14.1% this morning. So we can expect pressure on salaries. So cost of hiring people is going to get more expensive. And then combined with that, we're expecting regulation to increase by 78% in the coming year. So if we look at that, so simple example in the UK, we're looking at an initiative where 2004 European regulations need to be replaced initially by December of this year, which was never possible, but in the short term with UK-based regulations. Now, will they be exactly the same? I don't know, but there's going to be a compliance requirement associated with many of those regulations for all of the businesses that you guys operate in today. Cool. Thank you. At that point, I'm going to hand back to Shreyang to take us through what it is that we've actually done in bringing that connectivity to you.
Thanks, Neil. Okay, so let's look at how Cube and Metrics team have come together to kind of simplify the entire regulatory change management process. Okay, so this is a quick process flow that's been highlighted here. So if you look at the first connector there, that's called Reg Insight. I mean, that's the horizon scanning connector, right? Which helps you get all the regulatory changes or regulatory feeds or documents as we refer, right? This could include your press releases, your news, publications, guidance letters, proposed rules, etc. So we have the Reg Insight connector that has been built that actually would allow you to bring all those horizon scanning pieces into Metrics Stream. And then Metrics Stream has its own capabilities, for example, routing and email. Metrics Stream has a capability where you can actually set up these routing rules or business rules that can actually help filter the noise further and send the right set of alerts to the right set of folks, right? So that you don't have to, again, struggle finding what are those alerts changes that are applicable to me or my department. You can then triage those alerts saying that it's applicable to me or not. You can create development processes where you actually would start linking those regulatory changes to your internal taxonomy, right? When I speak about internal taxonomy, I'm talking about the different processes, risk, policies that an organization deals with. So the entire mapping can be done as part of your development process. You can then conduct an impact analysis on how that regulatory change is actually going to impact your business or your departments. And then we have the issue management for any deviations, any non-conformance. You can always report issues and get those resolved. Right, with respect to emails, we have a pretty robust email framework that can actually help you notify the right set of users when a regulatory change or a regulatory feed comes in. Right, so that's the horizon scanning connector. And to be honest, horizon scanning is not new to Metrics team. We had some native connectors in the past for horizon scanning, but now we have also introduced Cube's Reg Insight into it. But the main USP is in the second integration, which talks about reg books and reg sections. Right, so the reg books can be called as regulations, rule books, right, that we can actually bring into our application. I'm sure most of you are aware that in Metrics team, we have something called as GRC libraries that we call them as our building blocks. Right, this is where you set up your entire compliance program, your regulations broken down into different requirements, obligations, etc. So that is what reg book and reg sections will actually help you do. It's not just for a new customer, but even for upgrade customers. If you tell us that these are the regulations, these are the regulatory agencies, these are the jurisdictions that I'm interested in, we're going to populate that data for you into our GRC library so that when you start your compliance program, you have the entire regulatory inventory ready for you for your consumption. Right? You can then use that regulatory inventory to again map it to your internal taxonomies of processes, risk controls, etc. So that's the initial load, right? So we call it as the day zero data, but it's not just about that, right? I mean, these requirements keep getting updated. There are new obligations that get added. So it's all about how we also provide those ongoing updates on a regular basis so that your inventory is always up to date. Okay. Again, the email notifications will serve as a good communication channel to inform the different business units on what has changed and how it is impacting your departments. Right, so this is the and just a point there, right? Today we didn't have this integration. So the way our users would actually go about creating this regulatory library is basically they would go to different regulatory websites, kind of extract that data into an Excel, then populate that into metric stream, or keep monitoring, each regulation, keep updating it one by one. So it was an extremely tedious process. We've seen organizations that had dedicated teams just to do this, right? So with this kind of integration, I mean, we kind of negate that whole manual process. It's totally automated. You have your library right in place. You get those frequent updates so that it's going to be totally seamless. Okay, again, just a few snapshots on data, how it flows from regulatory agency to maybe metric stream, right? So we've given an example of the FCA handbook, which is available on the FCA website. And then Q processes that data, curates it, kind of puts it in a consistent format. And then again, it's moved to metric stream, which again, right, if you see the same hierarchy is maintained in terms of how the chapters are listed, how there are regulations within or requirements within each of those chapters, etc. And then that's where we give the added benefit of kind of maintaining those relationships or establishing those relationships with the internal taxonomy that you already have. Okay, a similar flow for the horizon scanning connectors as well. So this is an example of UK Finance, where they just published a regulatory change, and then how Cube curates it, uses a lot of, their AI frameworks to kind of curate that data, provides more analysis. They have legal experts who actually kind of provide a lot more analysis. And then the same data flows into metric stream, where you can take the next steps in terms of, doing those impact analysis, creating those developments, etc. Okay, just a case study that I would like to highlight. We recently worked with a customer, again, a prominent British financial institution that we worked with. Again, one of their goals was to, kind of structure their entire regulatory change management program, which was extremely manual today. Right? Again, they had dedicated teams, who would manage regulatory change for them. All were working kind of in silos, and it was very difficult for them to kind of give that enterprise visibility on what's actually going on in the organization, right? So a lot of redundant tasks, a lot of duplicate work that was being going on. So that's why they reached out to us to see if they can actually transform their whole regulatory change management process and bring in more consistency, more structured approach to managing regulatory change. So some of the challenges, I mean, they were tracking rules from multiple jurisdictions, included United Kingdom and EU supranational. It was again across 28 different countries. They had over 50 different horizon scanning sources that used to track on a daily basis. Again, as I said, today it was extremely manual. They would either go to every regulatory website, copy paste the data into our application or into an Excel spreadsheet that they were currently using. A lot of manual inputs, absolutely no consistency. There was, there could be cases that certain requirements or obligations are applicable across different regulations, but because of this manual approach, that linkage was never established, right? So considering all these challenges, I mean, we brought these benefits to them, ensured that they are able to have that comprehensive coverage across those jurisdictions that they were interested in, a more structured and a standardized process that they could follow. They had more enterprise-wide visibility, and again, right, they were able to kind of gain agility by quickly acting on tasks and assigning tasks to different individuals to perform the impact analysis and others. Okay, this is just the last slide. Again, a few disclaimers, how we went about calculating this, the ROI, right? So this is, again, the numbers that you currently see are based on the horizon scanning connectors that, we have. We haven't done this analysis for the reg book and the reg section integrations yet, the regulatory inventory. But at least with the horizon scanning connectors that we have, we've spoken to a few customers, and we've seen that there is a 90% reduction, especially in the redundant and duplicate tasks that they used to perform. Right? There was 70% increase in employee efficiency with respect to managing alerts. So the employees didn't have to really struggle to find where they can find those regulatory changes, what's actually applicable to their department, etc. 30% increase in identifying impacted libraries. So when the data comes curated from Cube into metric stream, I mean, it has a lot more information for you to kind of identify the related areas, right? Your different lines of business, processes, policies, as I mentioned. So there was definitely a 30% increase in that. And it was a matter of few seconds that a lot of organizations were able to start their regulatory change management process with some of the out-of-the-box workflows and reports that we already have, just to show that it's a pretty mature product that we have at Metrics team. Yeah, so that's all I had to cover. Maybe if you have any questions, we can open up the room for that.
Shreyang, got one down here.
Okay.
Yes.
Do the Metrics team allow to do like the mapping? And so like that's something that you guys
Good point. So today, yes, it's pretty manual. We do have the paragraphs. We refer to them as requirements within Metrics team, right? So those paragraphs are listed as requirements where you can actually do the mappings with different risk controls that the requirements or the obligations would be applicable to. We're definitely planning to bring in AI so that it can give you those recommendations saying that, this could be some of the impacted areas or related areas of this particular paragraph that you see here. And that's actually in the works. We're actually targeting that in one of our upcoming releases. Sure. Okay, this integration has been released in the Euphrates 1 version, which was released in October of this year.